Hey, welcome to Art Speak University, everybody. Meh, 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 or something like that, right? Sweet. Awesome. I'm glad you all are here today. We've got Mark Geddes and Jackson Roberts with us. We are talking all about live event coverage with these guys. If you've seen any photo or video work coming from ArtSpeak recently, these guys were probably behind it or involved in it in some way. So we're in good hands today. I'm excited to hear from them just about this live event coverage. So, practical tips on covering large events, empowering volunteers, building a team around that, and telling that story at your church, and then also ways to capture that B-roll, events, images, all those things that you're going to need to use to communicate about your church and about what's happening there. So excited to hear about this. If you've got not comment, comments are good too. But if you've got questions, um, as we hear from them, drop them in the Q&A chat feature that we have down here, and we will get to them towards the end. We do want to hear if you have something that's kind of burning your brain or something you want to hear more about. Let us know, and these guys will hit on it towards the end. So I don't know, without any other delay, we've got these guys here. Guys, I'm excited to hear from you. So
Awesome. Thanks so much. Yeah, today we are talking about pro practices for high quality live event coverage at your church or organization. And that can look like a conference that you might have coming up, or I don't know if there's like a big holiday coming up in the church that you might need to cover because you're doing some more stuff around your space and around your building, or multi service. Easter is coming. Maybe you have conferences, maybe you have events with student ministry or kids ministry, or you just are like, hey, I'm sick of using stock photos and I need to start implementing weekly regular coverage so that I can have more photos to work with for social media or marketing purposes, or more footage to work with for promotional or signage or whatever it looks like. So we're going to talk about how to build and shape a team, and then run an event with that team. So, my name is Mark Geddes. I lead the video team here at ArtSpeak, and with me is Jackson Roberts. And yeah, we're just going to dive right in. So, coming from a place of um, both from a spot of like we've been in leadership over teams like this, or we've also just been the person with the camera in our hands. So, who is today for? It's kind of for both. If you are a creative director and you maybe lead a team, or you have volunteers who are photographers and videographers, but you don't yourself touch a camera, today this is for you. If you're a photographer and you're just part of a team, maybe not necessarily the leadership, this is for you. If you are the one-stop shop photographer, videographer, creative director, you also have to lead worship on Sundays. This is for you. So we hope you get some value out of today. And we're going to start right with the end in mind. The end goal of today is that when we're done with the presentation, that you have a plan that allows you to cover any event effectively. Like I said, that's Sunday conference, or just yeah, whatever you have coming up in your church organization. So we're going to break it down into three sections, and section one is the plan. And so you could just say, hey, I have three volunteers and I have three cameras, and we're all going to grab the cameras, and church is going to start, and we're going to take some photos, and then we're going to get together at the end and we're going to see what we shot. And if you did that, I'd be willing to bet that you'd probably walk away with three angles of a really cool drum set and a drummer under cool lights. Because that's like the thing that everyone gravitates to. Jason mentioned it last week when he was talking about examples of good footage in ArtSpeak University. And so, if you don't have a plan, people are probably going to gravitate to either what looks really cool, or what they want to shoot, and not necessarily get all of the coverage that you need for either your stock library, or just knowing where the content is going to go. So, step one in the plan, you need to determine what needs to be captured. and then determine where the content is going to be going. So, what's the destination? If you're shooting for social media, you are going to frame your shots a certain way. If you're shooting knowing that I need a photo of a crowd worshiping during church service, but I also know that it's going to become a print graphic, you might want to give some more negative space in your composition so that you're able to add text or a title, or know you're shooting vertical because it's a print piece that's a half page, or whatever. So knowing your final destination and is going to really help inform your shooting team to capture what they need to capture. Um, and then you need to communicate that vision with your team. And I think one of the best ways to communicate the vision with your team is also one of the most boring tools that we have at our disposal, which is a spreadsheet. And so it can look as simple as this on the left hand side. Um, just list out the items that's going to happen. So maybe it's arrive to church at this time, band rehearsals this time, service starts here, people are in the lobby, take a break, go, dump your card for the next service, grab a new battery. Service starts, people are in the lobby. Maybe you break down your services into, we have 3 songs here. On the columns, then you can take each one of those volunteer positions or each one of those team members positions and actually lay out, hey, you need to be shooting wide shots of the room, you need to be shooting tight shots of the band on the stage left hand side. You get the coveted position of shooting the drummer, and getting footage or images of the drummer. Um, what that's going to do then is that's going to make sure that not only are you going to get the actual shots that you're looking to get, but your team isn't going to just be in this like free form creative space that kind of without any direction just gives them the ability to do whatever they want to do, but not necessarily give you what you're looking for. So I'm a creative. Jackson is a creative. We work in a team of creatives. I think that if you are or work, with creatives, you probably have experienced like no notes or no direction. It can be one of the worst possible things you can give or have when trying to accomplish something. Um, because that freedom can almost just be limiting and like, well, what do I shoot? And what people will tend to do is either I'll shoot the same thing or they'll overshoot. I don't know how many photos you're looking for, so I just kept clicking the shutter button, and now you have all these files to go through and sort and edit. Or they will come back, and you're not going to get what you want. So creating a plan, communicating that plan, and I think the best way that I've seen it used, and this is an example working with a team of 5 shooters and 1 editor, was actually having that spreadsheet laid out, meeting with them ahead of time, whether it's in person or on a call, maybe a week out. This is for a multi-day conference, going through line by line, catching any issues. Well, I can't be in 2 places at once, or it'd actually be better if this person and this person swapped. Um, and then printing out multiple copies of that schedule and just resourcing the team with it. So, hey, everyone has their own copy. There's a copy, taped up to the door of whatever room we're working out of. And that way, all of your touch points with people during the event are just relational. Like, hey, are you good? Do you need anything? Can I see what you shot? Versus like, you need to be here right now. And you're not just driving people with direction that you could, give with a schedule and a piece of paper. Um, yeah, Jackson, I'd love to hear from you what that looks like as far as taking that plan into like the final content stage.
Yeah, I'd love to just take that even a step further, especially as you're talking about creating a plan and casting a vision. And Mark, you were talking about kind of the different iterations of like maybe you're the team that has a creative director, an art director, a photographer, a designer, or maybe you're the team who you are that full team. And pending what that is, I think as you create your plan and your vision casting, either to your team or to yourself, one of the best things is to just think far ahead and not just far ahead in advance of where this is going, but how can my content be utilized? Is it going to be utilized on web? Is it going to be utilized on social? Is it going to YouTube? Is it going on print? If it's going on social, is it in 16 by 9? Is it 1 by 1? Is it going to be 9 by 16 for stories? Is it short reel format? Is it TikTok format? Is it long format 16 by 9 for YouTube? and just kind of having those concepts in mind as you're going out and your team is shooting or you're capturing content, it'll give you an opportunity to one, have that at the forefront of your mind, gives you a little more creative direction, and two, it's honestly just a really good reminder for your photographers and your videographers to spin the camera. A lot of the time we get stuck with our camera in 16 by 9, or we get stuck always shooting in 9 by 16 vertical format, or stuck in horizontal format. But having some of that plan will allow us to know how we should be shooting, what we should be capturing, and just allows us to have that end goal in mind. And then as we go on to vision cast that to a team, or even just to vision cast that for yourself, you feel a lot more prepared stepping into the day. So, yeah, I think um, that's about it, though, for the plan. Would love for you to jump back in for section two, the event.
Yeah. So you have a plan set in place. You've put it together. You've communicated with your team, and now it's day of. So let's say it's Easter Sunday, for example, because that's coming up, and maybe you have some more volunteers that are able to help, or more team members that want to shoot and be part of it. So what do you do during the event? What does that actually look like? Well, because you've done the prep, a lot of the communication that you're going to give your team day of is going to be repeat communication, right, of that plan. Maybe we're going to go over it, prep yourself and your team, go over the logistics. Make sure that there are no issues morning of, oh, hey, well, I actually don't have as many batteries as I thought, or I have an SD card that's been acting up. Like, what do you need to make sure your team has so they can flow together without you being a bottleneck, honestly. Um, and then organize, talk over like the little things, the nitty gritty things. I know this is very granular, but it can really make or break getting something edited and on social media in a timely manner, or just finding a file later. Go through your camera settings. Make sure that all of your shooters are unified in their white balance. Um, Something like that is going to make the difference between if you're able to edit in batches and apply filters in batches, or if you're going to have to go through every different shooter's photos and readjust color temperature based on the white value. And here's a hint, or just a quick tip: if you're shooting in a church setting, um, there's probably someone who knows something about the lighting system that you can find out at least a little bit about. Hey, what is the color of our front light? Or you can go in, ahead of time and use a white card and figure that out yourself, so that you're able to say, hey, everybody, we're at this Kelvin temperature, and we're all going to lock in at the same time. We're going to make sure that our settings are the same. That way, um, editing gets a lot easier. Another setting that you want to check is you want to make sure that people have their cameras synced up in time. Because if you have multiple shooters all dumping into the same catalog, let's say in Lightroom or whatever you're editing in, if you have all of the internal clocks on the cameras synced together, maybe not down to the exact second, but down to the minute, then if you have multiple shooters in the same service shooting at the same time, those photos will all load sequentially, versus here's all of my stuff, here's all of their stuff, or maybe it was off by 2 minutes and now the whole service is just this scrambled mess of photos. Talk about folders, talk about file names. You can set your camera to set up the file name as the initials of the person shooting. Just little things like that maybe in the week when you're looking to grab a photo for social media, or maybe you're trying to turn something around by the end of service, being able to like know that this file exists here, and maybe it's not even you but someone else on your team who's doing the editing or doing the posting, they're able to go and find it. Because if you have a team that scales bigger than one or two shooters, you're going to want people to be able to jump in, drop an SD card, pick up a new SD card, and go, and have the editor or the person running social know that yes, it's on the card, it's right there, and I can grab it and we can go. Yeah, talk about that stuff. Write it down. If you have like a whiteboard in your office or creative suite, like just write down, hey, you put it in a folder with your name and you name the file this, or you batch rename when you're way in, just so that people know and there's no guesswork and it's not in your head, it's on paper, it's on the wall. And then the next step of the event is just to send your people out to capture and create, whether it's you or your team. Is get out there and ideally all this planning, it's not like nitty gritty to like put the rules on people or make people uninterested in creating. It's honestly more than anything to free them up to just not have to think about all this stuff in the back of their head. It's on paper, they have a plan, they don't have to text you or ask you, but they can just go and create. And we have some tips that we can jump in, for shooters, video shooters, photo shooters, and there's some general tips that we can walk through. And so, one of the I think tips that I've found has been really helpful over the years is if you're working in a space that like you want to capture a live band for your service, use the band rehearsal to get a feel for or even capture what you can't during the event. So let's talk about like a video shooter. Maybe they have a rig, a gimbal of some kind. There's mass, there's weight. You don't want them like standing in front of your worship leader during a song, right? Like how awkward would that be if you went to church on Easter Sunday? And I'm not talking about like a camera guy for like broadcast. I'm talking about like some guy with a big old camera like standing dead center on the front of their stage, right in front of your worship leader. That would be really distracting to the congregation, the people attending church. But the band is most likely going to have a rehearsal or a sound check the morning of. So if you are able to set up communication with maybe production director or worship leader, whatever the structure in your church looks like, and say, "Hey, can we do full lighting? And can we, tell the worship team like, can we have the same energy that we would have as if it's service? I know it's early, probably warming up, maybe still waking up, depending on what time it is. But if we can do that, we're able to get footage that we'd never be able to get during the service. We're able to get shots and angles that we'd never be able to get because we wouldn't be able to do it without being distracting. So I would definitely say if you can use your rehearsal to not just test but actually shoot photos, shoot footage, that's a really 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 big win. Before we jump into the photo tips, can we park for a second, Jackson, and just talk about gear?
Totally.
Yeah.
Would love to.
So if you went on Google or YouTube and you search for best camera for church photography,
Don't do
um,
that.
you are going to waste so much time and potentially create so much imposter syndrome for yourself or your budget or your team. Um, I think the biggest lie that we tell ourselves in like the church creative world is so and so has this piece of gear. I won't be able to produce results until I am able to spend the money and buy this thing, right? Like if you don't have a camera, but you want to start capturing photos for your church for Sunday morning or Easter Sunday, and it's just you, start here. And there are a lot of people who will tell you that this is like the worst advice in the world. But those people are probably hiding behind like a little bit of maybe, I don't want to say gear pretension or pretentiousness, but like, and don't get me wrong, like a good camera is a good camera and it's worth it. But don't let not having the camera that people tell you you need to have stop you from taking any photos or footage in the first place, right? Like don't let that be the barrier of entry. So we were just talking about this morning. I like and prefer Canon. I shoot Canon. At ArtSpeak we shoot Sony. um Jackson, what's your like current relationship with brands and gear, if you don't mind saying?
Uh, it would be on Facebook. It would be my relationship status would be like it's complicated.
Love it.
Mostly because like I've shot on Sony, I've shot on Canon, which is my current system, and then currently I'm trying to go to Leica. So I'm all over the place. But like, I mean, exactly what you're saying. Don't tell my old team this, but some of the best content we captured was on iPhones, and so yeah, it really doesn't matter. It's more so user error most of the time, and so I think there's a lot of opportunity to just utilize what's in your pocket or what's available to you.
Hmm.
And honestly, some of the content that is just out there currently that's killing the content game is coming from iPhones. So I think we can harp on this for a while, and I think we probably have a lot of people, even on our team, who have different gear and different preferences. But really, it's just whatever you have access to. Just get started is the best tip for anyone. for anyone.
Yeah. The best camera is the one that you have in your hand, and that's, I know it's probably cliche at this point, but if
Yeah,
gear imposter syndrome is stopping you from shooting, take a second, step back, and say, okay, well, what do I have and what can I do? Um, I
yeah,
would say if you're shooting on a phone, a couple bucks for a manual camera app will make a huge difference just
totally.
in blowing out the highlights. So for video, Filmic Pro is a go-to. For photos, it's Camera Plus, just a plus symbol after the word camera. Those are both manual control apps that allow you
Yep,
to not blow out the highlights, which is usually the issue that a phone camera is going to have. And
yep,
in a like a church stage environment and like the modern kind of looking environment, you'll have a lot of highlights on stage, person under light, and then low light crowd. So yeah, I would jump in.
yeah.
Let's talk
I would
about.
even
Oh, good.
I would just quickly add, like, if you can't even afford that, you have great settings on your iPhone already or on whatever phone you're using. If you get into the settings app, and you go into your camera, there's plenty of tools and little gears that you can mess with in there that'll give you access to probably a lot more definition than you think, including like 4K video on most phones now. But yeah, Mark, I'm gonna keep moving us along.
Yeah.
I'm gonna jump down to for create and capture. We just have a few more tips really quick for photo and video. And so for the photo section, the three tips that we wanted to remind people of is just rate in camera, which for those of you who don't know, there's an option most of the time where when you're shooting on a DSLR or any sort of camera like that, you have an option to rate your photos, typically from a 1 to 5 rating system. And you can do that as you're shooting. So if you are going and you shoot 20 photos and you have two of those 20 photos that you really want to utilize, you can rate those so that later when you upload them to Photoshop, Lightroom, or your preferred editing software, you can then just go and utilize or call to those photos so that you're not calling all of your photos again once you're on an editing software. And then practically, move your feet. A lot of photographers love lenses that zoom, and they're great. But in all reality, the more you're able to move around the room, the more you're able to be in different places, the more variety you're going to have in your shots. And I think people sometimes just get cement feet and get stuck. They really enjoy a perspective that they've found or an angle, or they don't get too comfortable with walking in front of people or around people. And so just keep moving and then think ahead. Just think about where your content's going and think about where you should be next in the room. What else do you need to capture? What else is on your shot list, etc. And Mark, I'll let you cover on the video side.
Yeah. For video, couple quick tips. Give yourself or the editor time in the clip. Nothing worse than being in the middle of an edit and wishing you just had like a second more from a clip where it got cut off. So just give yourself, more time than you think you need. A little bit of pre-roll, a little bit of post-roll, just so that you just have some space to work with in whatever move or clip you're capturing. Double check your settings. This is especially key if you're going to be jumping frame rates. Like maybe you're shooting 24 as a standard, but your camera can drop you down to 60 and you want to do some slow mo. Well, you'll need to change some shutter speed settings and things to make that work. Now, if you go back to 24 but forget to change your shutter speed back, you might be shooting some really high shutter speed 24. It might be underexposed. So just constantly be checking your settings, and then same thing with what Jackson said, zoom with your feet, keep moving, especially because video tends to just cut together. If you have cement feet or you're shooting maybe different subjects but all at the same angle, because you didn't move but the rotation of people coming out on stage has changed, those clips aren't going to really necessarily cut well together because you have not offered a variety to the editor or to yourself as the editor. So just keep moving, keep innovating, finding new angles. Yeah. So day of, you have a plan in place. You have a team who's out doing their thing, and your goal, your role as a team lead here is just to equip and motivate. That can be really practical. That can look like making sure you have bottled water, making sure there are some snacks for people to grab, offering feedback, celebrating the win. Like as people are coming in, hey, I like the most exciting thing, like when you're working with a photo or video team, is that moment where you don't even pull the card out yet, but you just load it up on your camera and you show someone the screen and go, I got it. Look at that one. So like be there, celebrate, like give feedback. I love that. Let's do more of that. Oh my gosh, can we try to get that for next service? Like that was such a great shot. Like show it to the rest of your team. Like rising tide raises all ships or something like that. So I would absolutely just, if you can utilize a plan, it gets you out of being the logistic person in the moment and just lets you just be a person, because ministry is about people. So it lets you just be a person. Yeah. And then the last part is the deliverables, what we're going to do with the content. So, Jackson, do you want to jump in and talk about that?
Yeah, Michi, can we jump forward a little bit in the slides? Sorry, I'm gonna move us forward. So the deliverables, yeah, and I think even the next one, if there is one more. Yeah, so we have already covered a little bit about this, but I just want to recap it and kind of take it a step further. So the deliverables, so we've captured all of our content, we've made it through the day, and now our creative team is gathering all of this content. We have it in a database, or we have it in some sort of Dropbox folder or system where we've categorized, edited our photos. What are we going to do with it? And so I think as we're thinking about where all of our deliverables can go, we just want to put it at the forefront of our mind that sometimes they'll live on places like social media, websites, paid media, YouTube, email, or even potentially on print. So maybe it's going on a banner, maybe it's going to be on new signage around your church or your ministry building. Maybe your ministry is publishing a book over the next year and you guys need content from groups engaging, or maybe you need a speaker who is, you're working as an author, maybe you need to have photos of yourself engaging at a conference or shaking hands with people, or so on and so forth. I think there's just a lot of options and opportunities for where this content can go. And so as the content is now collected, don't just let it sit. And I think a lot of the time we get stuck as we're starting to design and plan out and figure out what we can do with this content, but really just getting the content out there and finding different mediums for that to live on. And I'm sure there's plenty of other fun ways that you guys can think of that would be phenomenal ways to utilize the content. But yeah, we just wanted to utilize that as a great reminder. And I think that's all we have for today. So would love to jump into question and answer if we have any questions.
Awesome. That's so good. Thank you guys. I think so. Somebody, I think Uriah said it's just shooting some photos, right? But I think you guys have helped us see that there's, yes, but also there's just a lot involved in what that means, especially, if you have a busy church or a larger church, or your team's small, or you're limited in resource, all these things that can go into that and kind of affect capturing. And like you said, Mark, it's about people. So it's about telling the story of your church and what's happening there. Yeah. So we don't have a ton of time for questions here, but there's a couple I think are really good. First off, Ryan asked, how can I help my volunteers overcome the fear of everyone will see me if I'm shooting too close to the action? And I think related
Yeah.
to that question too is, if you're in the lobby and you want to take pictures, there's something to be said about kind of candid photos, but also, what if people see me, or how do I approach them, or how do I get over that fear as a volunteer? How do I help my team do that?
Yeah. I love that question. I feel like, so for me personally, as I managed or worked with a photography volunteer team a little bit, whenever I would work with a new volunteer, one of the first things I would do is just shoot with them their first time. Walk around the building with them, make sure they're comfortable navigating the building or navigating the venue, whatever that is. Get your feet on the ground with them
Mm.
and make sure that they're comfortable. If you are comfortable getting close to the stage, they're probably going to start to feel comfortable getting close to the stage. Let them, provide them feedback, let them know that they can show up ahead of time for rehearsal time where you can really get on stage, or maybe you can get in the center of the worship. And some of the best photos that I feel like I was able to capture during event coverage or anything that had to do like worship or conferences was always during rehearsal, because I was able to get up nice and close and personal. And that'll allow new volunteers just an opportunity to see that they can be comfortable doing that as well. And also, I would just say providing feedback and allowing them to know that what they're doing it matters, and just allowing them to feel like they're a part of a team and that they're not just out there alone. And there's always going to be instances. I've had people come up to me in atriums or after gatherings and say, "Hey, I noticed you were taking photos. Can I ask what that was for?" And then just equip your team to have a quick response to something like that. And if someone's like, "Hey, I really don't want my photo taken," just delete the photo. It's not worth an argument, and it's not worth losing a member to your church or ministry or organization over. Content is content, but as we always say here, people matter more, and people are first. So hopefully that's helpful.
Yeah, it's so good. So
That's
good.
good
Yeah, I
stuff.
love modeling. Like Jackson said, model it for them. So sometimes it's going to just take team members seeing you get up on stage, or you, have a conversation with someone in the lobby, after you've shot a candid of them, and being relational to go, oh
Yeah.
no, I can do this. I've seen it done. Now I can do it too.
Yeah, 100%. That modeling is so good. Yeah, that's awesome. One other quick question here too, and then we'll wrap up. But what's a good method to implement ongoing training for
Mm,
something like this? So for people that are on your team, maybe they're new, maybe they are experienced photographers. What's a way that you can kind of help them continue, and that idea of modeling or whatever, continue to
yeah.
improve and get better?
I'd say for like if your worship band has a weekly rehearsal, um, pair a team night with a weekly rehearsal,
Oh
and
yeah,
just have them shoot. Have them come early, have them shoot the meeting, have them shoot the actual rehearsal time. Tell the team ahead of time it's going to be happening. That'll just get them comfortable in the space.
Hmm.
Another great way, and this is just because I have a heart for it, is if you have like some kind of crazy event happening in your youth ministry. Um, it is such a great, like, I would say, easy win to go and shoot, like, an event with teenagers, because like, they wanna be on camera, so they're great
Yeah,
subjects. You're probably gonna get a mix of, like, some kind of games, talking, relation time, worship, like, all of that, so you get this, like, hyper mixed, bag of things to shoot, and there's just a great energy that you can capture there. So, like, if you ever get the opportunity to go on like a weekend retreat or something, like, and you want to up your game as a photographer, like, that will absolutely put you through the fire, and is a ton of fun.
yeah, that's awesome. That's great. They do love being photographed, those students. So
Yeah.
nice. Well, cool, man. Thank y'all so much for this. And if you guys have any other questions, you know, join us in Slack. We've got the ArtSpeak community Slack channels. We got all sorts of different channels in there, and you can reach these guys, or any of the other folks on the team or other people in the community, and just talk more events, live events, photo, video, all that stuff. So appreciate y'all. Appreciate everybody else being here, and we will catch you next week.